Oh, really?
So everybody on the west side of the capital in his own means.
Well, good evening, everyone. And I want to welcome you to the Holland Land Office Museum for, which turns out to be our first guest speaker of the season. Due to the winter being the winter. So we're very excited to have Reverend Jeremai Williams back again for the second year in a row. If you were here last year, remember the great presentation he did, but so this year he will be regaling us with tales of African American inventors and their impacts that we still feel today. So I will let him take it away.
All right. Okay. Before I begin, my wife is going to come up here and say a few words. Dr. Cassandra Williams, everyone.
Good evening. I'm just going to do just a brief aspect on the on Black history as far as how we came to have Black History Month, how we got here, and the history behind it. So Black History Month, also known as African American History Month, has been celebrated nationally in the United States every February since 1976. It's a time to celebrate achievements by African Americans and recognize us for our central role in U.S. history. Canada and the United Kingdom also devote a month to Black history. It grew out of Negro History Week, which started by historian Carter G. Woodson and others in 1926, choosing the second week in February to coincide with the birthdays of President Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. By 1960, it evolved into Black History Month and was recognized and celebrated on many colleges and in many cities. In 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized it nationally and called on the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. So that was the first year, in 1976, where it was nationally recognized and celebrated nationally. Today, Black history is widely celebrated, and many organizations and media outlets dedicate time and resources to making it special with events such as this.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're actually going to use a mic? Yes.
I
You
just
have a
used
soft voice.
I used the mic last time, I believe.
Yeah. This was a year ago. I can't remember anything.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Before I begin, just let me tell you, there was somebody else slated to speak with me to present. Also, Gregory Bryce, but he got caught at work. I believe he's one of the snowplow drivers, I believe. So he said he got caught at work, and he was like, I didn't know. It was like 3 o'clock this morning. He texted me, and he was like, I'm gonna try to get there. I don't know if they're gonna make me stay or not. And he was updating me throughout the work day today. And then he texted me. He was like, I gotta stay till 8. So from 3 in the morning till 8 in the evening. So yeah. So but. I'm grateful that I'm able to stay here and I was able to get here. And so my presentation is going to be much shorter. This whole presentation is going to be much shorter. But just bear with me just for a few minutes. I want to welcome everybody here today. My name is Jeremai Williams. I am the pastor of Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church and First Baptist Church here in Batavia, New York. I was actually born and raised here in Batavia. I grew up right on Everett Street. I don't know if you know where that is, but I grew up right on Everett Street and went to St. Joe's actually. I didn't go to the middle school, and I went to St. Joe's, and then I went to the high school. I actually played football at Notre Dame, and I played football and basketball both places. And so, yeah, born and raised here in Batavia. I want to thank Ryan Duffy and Holland Land Office again for this invitation and this opportunity to be able to speak during African American History Month again. I truly appreciate that. And so let's just dive in for a few minutes. Raise your hand if you drive. My granddaughter was her hand in the first. She actually does have a little. I bought her a little Jeep. She actually does drive, so she does. And so if you drive, and if you've been driving for a number of years, what is one thing that we all have to respect when it comes to driving? Where if you go through it, you might get a ticket. And one hint, it's not a stop sign. Red light, stop sign, right? The stop light. Right. Very good. So tonight, just for a few minutes, I'll be presenting on Garrett Morgan. Is anybody familiar with Garrett Morgan? Okay, good. Well, maybe you'll learn something this evening. He was, his most notable improvements and inventions led to the modern day traffic light and gas mask. Okay? And so I'm gonna tell you about his early years. Garrett Morgan, referred to as the Black Edison, was one of 11 children, and he was born in 1877 in Paris, Kentucky. He was the son of former slaves, and because of the economic pressures of life, he dropped out of school after the 6th grade. Dropped out of school after 6th grade to go and work. And at age 14, he left his family's farm and moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, where he found work as a handyman. However, it's clear that Morgan never forgot about his education and continued to see the value in learning. Because, according to his granddaughter, Sandra Morgan, he was a lifelong learner. He surrounded himself with educated people, listened to radio stories, and during his time as a handyman, he actually hired a private tutor to continue his education. He was 14, right? That's how much he valued learning. His handyman skills proved to help him progress in life because in 1895, he moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and began repairing sewing machines. He wasn't just an inventor, but a savvy businessman. In 1907, he continued working with sewing machines, but this time, he was in business for himself. He became the owner of his own sewing equipment and repair shop. In this business is where his first invention was thought of. There was, because he had multiple inventions. So there was a common problem back then with sewing machines, okay? The sewing machines, the needles will move up and down. You guys know how sewing machines move. So the needles will move up and down so fast that they would become hot. And sometimes they would scorch and burn the fabrics of the materials that they were working on. And so aware of this issue, Morgan invented a solution to reduce the friction of the needles. And so then after that, he found that it worked, it was working very well. He patented that solution, his formula, in 1909. So Garrett's most well-known inventions came by way of tragedies during his time, though. Okay, so he invented this solution that helped with sewing machines, and he started a company. And so, but his greatest accomplishments came by way of tragedies. So listen to this. In 1911, in New York City, there was a terrible fire called the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire. 146 workers died, and Morgan saw that firefighters struggled with smoke inhalation. This prompted Morgan to study up on absorbent filters, and he went to work on a breathing mask that would help prevent smoke inhalation. In 1914, he patented a safety hood that went over the head and had tubes that reached the ground where air was usually cleaner, right? And so you remember, we all were in school before, And remember the firemen would come into school sometimes and they tell you about stop, drop, and roll and all that stuff. And they always told you if there's a fire and smoke is in the building, they tell you to get down low, right? Because that's where the air is cleaner. And so he researched this, he figured all this out. And so this safety hood that he had tools running down all the way to the floor. This unit allowed people to breathe more safely in areas where harmful smoke and gases were. It was pretty effective, but because of the color of his skin, cells were hindered. This made Morgan find a workaround this racist obstacle. So he's an African-American man, has a great invention. People knew that this was a great invention, but because he was black, they didn't buy it. They wouldn't buy it. And he had problems selling his invention because he was black. So he had to figure out, how am I going to sell this product? It's a great product, how am I going to sell it? So this is what he did. He hired white actors to sell his hood while he played the back seat role as an assistant. Savvy. He was savvy. Morgan's safety hood was field tested though in 1916 during the construction of a tunnel for a fresh water supply 120 feet beneath Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. Workers were drilling and hit a pocket of natural gas, causing an explosion. Workers were trapped, and 10 people who tried to go and rescue them lost their lives because they were overcome by the gas and smoke. So authorities turned to Garrett, and him and other volunteers, one of them was his brother, wore his mask, and although 20 people died in the incident, thanks to Morgan's safety hood, 8 people were rescued. This made national news, okay? This whole event and what happened made national news, and Morgan's safety hood as well. Although his involvement was omitted because he was black. And so they talked about the whole ordeal and everything like that, but he didn't get any thanks because he was black. People also found out that he was actually the owner and inventor of this life-saving hood, so orders began to get canceled. But despite this setback, fire stations across the country began to acquire this must-have invention because it was saving lives. His design also previously won first prize at the Second International Exposition of Safety and Sanitation. Morgan's breathing device went on to become the prototype and precursor for the gas masks used during World War I, protecting soldiers from toxic gas used in warfare. Now, this safety hood was not the extent of his inventions. There was something about a tragedy that moved Morgan to think differently. During the 1920s, most of the traffic signals in use featured only 2 positions, stop and go. Manually operated, these 2 position traffic signals were an improvement over no signal at all. But because they allowed no interval between the stop and go commands, collisions at busy intersections were common during the transition, moving from one street to another. Another problem with the 2-position traffic signal was the susceptibility to human error. Okay, operator fatigue invariably resulted in erratic timing of the stop and go commands, and so you can imagine if you got to manually do this, and if you're standing there all day changing the sign, sometimes it wasn't like how we have today, where it's on a timer, right? So if you're switching real fast and different things, you can possibly cause an accident. And so this is what's happening because of the fatigue and the timing of the stop and go commands changes, which confused both drivers and pedestrians. At night, when traffic officers were off duty, motorists frequently ignored the signals altogether. So you can imagine people zipping through, the stop sign. At night sometimes people will run red lights, get tickets.
Like now.
Right, right. So it wasn't uncommon to see bicycles and animal-powered carts and motor vehicles sharing the same road space with pedestrians. Morgan was the first black man to own a car in Cleveland. And so one day, Morgan witnessed a collision involving an automobile and a horse-drawn carriage carrying a young child. This inspired Morgan to invent a traffic signal that featured movable arms that directed the traffic to stop, go, or stop in all directions. When the signal to stop in all directions was activated, all vehicles had to stop. This third option, a forerunner of today's yellow or amber light, okay, like the slow down, you prepare to stop, not only prevented collisions between vehicles, but also allowed pedestrians to cross the street safely. At night or other times when traffic was minimal, the Morgan signal could be positioned in a half-mast posture, alerting approaching motorists to proceed through the intersection with caution. The half-mast position had the same signaling effect as the flashing red and yellow lights of today's traffic signals. Morgan's traffic management technology was used throughout North America until it was replaced by the red, yellow, and green light traffic signals currently used around the world. Although Morgan's invention was not the first traffic signal, it controlled traffic better than many earlier signals had. In 1923, he patented his improved traffic signal and later had the technology patented in Great Britain and Canada. Morgan eventually sold the rights to the device for how much? How much do you think he sold the rights to his device for? How much? That would be, now understand, we're in the 1923? You know, we're in the 1920s, that's a huge, but you're not that far off. He sold the rights to his device to the General Electric Corporation for $40,000. That's the equivalent to around $700,000 today. And then if you think about that, where, you know, $40,000 back then, you know, it was like $700,000, plus he had businesses, right? He was a business owner. So his technology went on to be a significant contribution to the development of what we now know as intelligent transportation systems, which focus area aims to develop innovations to advance transportation safety, mobility, and environmental sustainability. Morgan's accomplishments transcended beyond this as well. In 1907, him and his wife, Mary Hassick, started a clothing business that was so successful it grew to employ more than 30 people. The company made coats, suits, and dresses sewn with equipment that Morgan made himself. Morgan noticed that his friction reducing, remember I talked about the friction reducing solution that he invented? Well, he noticed that it was good for the sewing machine, but it also straightened the cloth fibers, which extended his invention even further. And so when he was doing it, he saw that the hair on the clothes, it would straighten the hairs on the clothing and on the materials that he used. So he took the solution and experimented on a neighbor's dog's fur, and it worked. This prompted him to try human experimentation on himself, and it was successful as well. This led to the establishment of yet another business, the G.A. Morgan Hair Refining Company in 1913, and sold the cream to African Americans. He would go to barbershops around town to convince people to try out his hair products. So he had several hair products. And he would go around town to the barbershops and convince people to try his hair products by using the shock and awe tactic. What he would do, he would drink a big gulp of his black hair oils stain because it was made of cod liver oil. And so he would drink it in front of them and they would be shocked and surprised. What are you doing? But it worked. And so Morgan continued to set his sights on the support and betterment of African Americans. And so he was a business owner, he was an inventor, and in 1920 Morgan started the Cleveland Call weekly newspaper, later renamed the Cleveland Call and Post, that discussed issues and topics of interest of Black Americans. This publication is still in print today.
Really?
Yeah, still in print today.
Cool.
He was a member of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, for the NAACP. Morgan also donated money to historically Black universities and colleges. And in 1923, Morgan bought over 100 acres of land in Wakeman, Ohio, which he later built a country club for African Americans. To this day, his family still gathers there. So, let me just sum up his legacy and ultimate death. Morgan improved and saved countless lives worldwide, including those of firefighters, soldiers, and vehicle operators with his profound inventions. And he was eventually restored to his place in history as a hero of the Lake Erie Rescue. Okay, so he eventually got recognized for it. His work provided the blueprint for many important advancements that came later and continues to inspire and serve as a basis for research conducted by modern-day inventors and engineers. In 2005, Morgan was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in Akron, Ohio. His prototype traffic signal is on display at the African American Museum in Cleveland, and the Garrett Morgan School of Engineering and Innovation in the city is named in his honor. Morgan began developing glaucoma in 1943 and lost most of his sight as a result. He suffered from other health problems, which he believed were attributed to the toxins present at the Cleveland Tunnel disaster. Just before his death, Morgan was honored by the U.S. government for his traffic signal invention. The accomplished inventor died in Cleveland on July 27, 1963, after battling lingering illnesses, according to his obituary in the Pittsburgh Courier. His death at age 86 came shortly before the celebration of the Emancipation Proclamation Centennial, an event he had been awaiting in Chicago. Morgan is buried at Cleveland Lakeview Cemetery, which is also the final resting place of former President James Garfield, Prohibition enforcer Eliot Ness, and business titan John D. Rockefeller. I appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. There would have been more, but
There is more, but
I
this
thought-
haven't heard it yet.
there's lots more. But like I said, I was supposed to be presenting with somebody else this evening, and so,
The best laid plans, right?
yeah. But again, I truly appreciate your time, and I appreciate the opportunity that Ryan afforded me. It's always a privilege to be able to come home, and to speak before people. And you guys, feel free to take a walk around the museum and have a blessed evening.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Don't take this the wrong way, but hot leather oil, doesn't that induce diarrhea?
It might, but listen, it may be, but whatever he was doing, it helped grow his business.
The only reason I bring that up is, my mom brought me up back then, they had their own remedies, and one of them was if you couldn't move.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know that.
Losing his shit. That's some bold stuff.
Yeah, well, but whatever he was doing, it worked.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you gotta do.
He was definitely for dropping out of the 6th grade, dropping out of school in the 6th grade, and then hiring a tutor to, continue your education.
That right there is just.
Yeah, and then, starting multiple businesses and continuing to invent, and then building machines, starting a business, and then building machines that made clothes and different things like that. That is truly a remarkable accomplishment.
The biggest thing, if you think about it, about, what he had up here and his vision for what he was trying to do. If he'd been a white man, the world would have been.
Right.
I'm being perfectly honest.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That's 100% true. He would have had much more opportunities. But again, you play the hand that you're dealt, right? And, you know, I've faced I'm 48, I just celebrated a birthday on
Happy
Wednesday.
birthday.
Yeah, so, yeah. But, you know, thank you, Bobby. Thank you. But even myself, you know what I mean, growing up here in Batavia, you know, I've had my share of racist encounters, and had to deal with some things, had to deal with some, you know, some people just from in school and different things like that. To be honest with you,
It's going on.
yeah, well, it's still going on, of course. But I'll be honest with you. You know, I went to St. Joe's here in Batavia. My family was the only African American family at St. Joe's at the time. Me and my brothers, sisters, and I. A couple people showed up later on. A couple more African Americans, but we were the only African American family for a time, and you know, that was difficult. You know what I mean? Being the only black kid in school, that was extremely difficult. You know what I mean? But I had some friends, but also I had to deal with sometimes people saying some things, and you know, just dealing with people. Sometimes you don't know why you're saying what you're saying, and so a lot of times I had to get clarity. Why are you saying what you're saying? And people would crack jokes and different things like that. You know what I mean? Including priests. You know, some of the priests would say some racial things over there. You know, I was just telling my wife Cassandra on the way down there. You know, some things that some of the priests would say. And like I said, it's the world we live in. You know what I mean? And so we have to do our part. You know, once you know certain things, we have to do our part. You know what I mean? And I hope that, you know, you're inspired to be good and do good. You know what I mean? And be a blessing to other people, and to be kind and loving. Because honestly, that's what God requires of us all. You know, is to do good. Okay? And so, yeah, but you know, if you have any other questions for me, I don't, you know, I gave you what I gave you what I got, you know. But if you have any personal questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Russell, and I just wanted to tell you, you know, we talk about Black History Month and all that. Well, I'm originally from Buffalo, and I had the privilege when I was in junior high school, which is like 1969 actually. And you know, back then Black history was taught in school. So I had to have my home teacher. He was a math teacher and all that, but he was very involved in Black history, you know, because he went to college and learned all this stuff. So he had the idea to go to the board and want to start an after-school Black history class. And so I had the privilege of being with him, you know, because I love school back then. You know?
Okay.
And I would stay after school, and I helped him establish that program.
Oh, okay.
And I learned a lot about, there were a lot of inventions that nobody, like the cotton gin and the sewing machine, all that, it was all invented by black men.
Yeah.
And so I had that privilege of learning it, you know, so, I mean, there's a lot of things that we just don't know and not aware of, but it was through by people like, his name was James Person, and through by that I got the knowledge that I was able to pass it on to some of the young people in my parents. It's very interesting. I just appreciate you being here tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have a question?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment, and it doesn't relate to inventions, but it's just an interesting story on the subject of traffic lights, and we found out it was true that in a suburb, a neighborhood in an Irish neighborhood of Syracuse, there was, back in probably the 1920s, when they were first installing the red and green lights. I don't know whether they had yellow yet, but
Okay.
in this Irish neighborhood, the young people saw it with red on top and green on the bottom. They saw it as kind of a racist remark, but you know, like the British redcoats against the green Irish, and they vandalized these traffic lights until the city finally decided, let's put green on top and red on the bottom, and the Irish people will be happy.
Oh, really?
So we went there, we found the
It's there.
theater section.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
You said he quit six years ago.
No, in sixth grade, yeah, he dropped out to work.
Yeah, my father, he had to do that because he had a farm. And how much he would gain for that. Sometimes, even with black people, it was even less time for studying.
Yeah, yeah,
He
books.
was lucky to be able to get to sixth grade.
Yeah.
And he used what he learned.
Yeah, we were shortchanged a lot, you know. In the school, there's a lot of history, a lot of African-American history out there.
Those cookies.
And different things. And so, you know, we continue to overcome, that our setbacks, different things like that. We continue to strive and overcome. Dr. Williams, she was at an event yesterday here in Batavia. Steen, the lady in the back, Sister Steen in the back here. She had an event, African American History event last night, and Dr. Williams spoke at that event. She talked about just African American trials in medicine, you know, particularly with women as well. And so, you know, there's just a lot.
Wish I could have known
Yeah, it was around, you know what I mean? If it, you know, stuff gets posted, you know, you gotta be on social media nowadays, you know? And it's cold outside, so, you know, if you're not walking around, you know, people are hanging up posters outside, you know? Any other questions for me or any other comments?
No.
Okay, again, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Just a quick PSA, a few upcoming events. Next Thursday is our next Java with Joe. So at 9 o'clock, Dr. Michael Eula, our county historian, will be here to talk about an excerpt from his upcoming book he's working on, which is The Hidden History of Genesee County. So this one will be, it's called The Idea of Freedom and the Civil War in Genesee County. So there'll be free coffee and donuts courtesy of Tim Hortons, so you know, stop on by. Our next guest speaker will be Dr. Michael Boston of SUNY Brockport. He's in the African American Studies Department, and he'll be talking about female conductors on the Underground Railroad in central and western New York. So that'll be Saturday, March 1st at 11 a.m. It's a little different time than our normal programming, but you should definitely come and see that. And then Dr. Ann Bunch, also of SUNY Brockport, will be here March 6th talking about the William Morgan affair. She just wrote a book on looking at it from a forensics anthropologist perspective of the William Morgan disappearance and mystery. And then No Blarney will be here March 14th for our traditional yearly Irish music concert. You won't want to miss that. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. Plus there's a whole bunch of other things coming on, but I won't bore you with any more details. You can just check out our website, check out Facebook. If you're on our email blast, you'll get to see it there. We're everywhere now, so we hope to see you again.
Thanks, Ryan.
And take a cookie.
Take a cookie.